Let's call the meeting to order. Let's all rise for the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning to all. How nice it was today to have the sunshine, or at least light, when we drive in here and not need a heavy coat on.
Sorry.
Okay, first item of business is approval of the February 6th meeting minutes.
Move for approval.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let's move into new business. So Brandon, if you would come forward and update us on the bridge situations in the county and what's happening.
Okay.
And hopefully you found more money for us. So forth.
Okay. Just wanted to kind of give you a quick rundown. I gave this presentation to the commissioners a couple weeks ago, but wanted to share with you as well. I'm going to start off with going over our 8 federal bridge projects, and then I'll shift gears into our local projects. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Bridge 701 on South G Street rehab. We started this project last year, but those are some of the pictures before construction, showing the deteriorated sidewalk, the patching underneath that was required under the arches, some of the major work that we've done, patching deteriorated concrete, sidewalks. We're going to be installing a safety railing on each side of the bridge rails this year. We've replaced the expansion joints in the deck, and then of course we rehabilitated the sidewalk and the deck wearing surface. So there's a couple pictures of August of last year. They were able to complete the upper portion of the project. They got stopped by the winter months underneath, so they still got a little bit more patching to do underneath before they wrap this project up. So NDOT matched us at $1.8 million on this one. Our local match was 1.5, so you kind of see the 55-45 split on this project. The remaining funding obligations we have, I know we talked a little bit about the additional patching that was required last year. NDOT has agreed to match any of the additional work at 80%, which we're projecting around a total cost of $800,000. So we would be responsible for $160,000 on that. So that would be the only additional obligation we have on this project.
Do you have those funds?
We have this, I know we advertised for the additional appropriation last year, but we were kind of waiting on that final dollar amount, and we're still waiting on that amount. So whenever we get that amount, I will come back to you guys to finalize that. The next project is Bridge 76 on Sample Road. This was a full replacement. It was a 1-lane bridge. As you can see, our guardrail was at today's standards, not really. So a lot of deterioration around the arches and the abutments, and it was a 1-lane bridge. So it was decided that a full replacement to widen to make it a 2-lane travel and also improve the guardrail and riding conditions of the roadway. Early this winter, they completed the demolition. They've removed the structure, and as of last week, they've installed all of the bridge beams. So they are now going to start working on constructing the deck. So construction costs on this one, NDOT was able to give us a little bit more money on this one to match the 80-20. So that we do not have any other unforeseen additional costs on this project. It's fully funded as of to date. Next project is Bridge 191 Heine Road. Again, this was another one-lane bridge. It's been closed for about 8 years now or more, give or take. The deck was deteriorating to the point where we tried to patch the deck and it just kept crumbling on us, so it was deemed unsafe for public traffic. So as you can see there, that was one of the repair spots. You can see the bridge beams are deteriorating underneath. So again, it was recommended for a full replacement, widen it to 2 lanes. We did get some bridge formula money, which can pay up to 100% of the construction costs. So NDOT did agree to give 93% on this one, with the local match being 7%. So that was very helpful that NDOT did that for us. Again, there's no other additional funding requests on this one. It is currently fully funded at this time. The next project is the Bridge 705, 712. This was a unique project because you've got the big bridge over the gorge and then there's a smaller bridge over Sheridan Street. So we decided that since these bridges are within 20, 30 feet of each other, it would be, and they needed the same type of rehabilitation work, it was deemed appropriate to do these together. NDOT has funded the larger bridge over the gorge, but the bridge over Sheridan Street is locally funded, paid all by us. As you can see right now, NDOT has matched the 80-20 on that. No additional funding requests at this time for this project. So some of the repair works we're doing on this is a bridge deck overlay similar to what we did on 701 on South G Street. On the west end, we're replacing the bridge bearings that are underneath the bridge beams at the abutment. As you can see, they're kind of rusted and heavily deteriorated. There's some patchwork going on the side of the bridge and underneath, and new approach slabs. As you can see, we've got some sinkholes and stuff as the approach pavement comes into the bridge deck. Currently scheduled for July 25 letting. I think we're going to try to move that to an October letting, only because that's when the bridge formula dollars, that extra additional pot that NDOT has for local projects, it opens in October. So talking with our NDOT counterparts, they thought it would be a good idea for us to let when those dollars are available, so we can kind of be put at the forefront of those dollars. So we will be trying to move that to an October letting.
When that, excuse me, when that's bid, what's the construction time? That's a rather major bridge for us.
I believe this one's going to be 180 days. And what they're going to do on that one is they're going to do the eastbound lanes and then basically shut 2 lanes down. So they'll do the north half and then the south half. So we'll still have traffic, and also the pedestrians will be able to use one sidewalk or the other. So it won't be a full closure. The next project we've got in Hopper is 716 Waterfall Road. This one's a unique project because it's got 5, you can see 3 there, but there's actually 5 piers, and they're not parallel to the channel. So what that does is that creates a scour issue with the water coming across the piers and eroding out the foundation and stuff. So what we're doing is we are replacing the whole bridge, and we're eliminating 3 of the piers. So that and realigning the piers so that they're in line with the channel, so it'd be less obstruction in the waterway as it passes under the bridge. To date, NDOT has only agreed to 53%. This is due to the massive inflation that we've seen over the past several years. NDOT has stated that they have to wait till after letting to decide if there's extra money to give to us. So at this time, that is our funding obligation. So you can see our total shortage on this one is $865,000 that we will need to try to come up with.
Brandon, I got a question on that.
Yes.
Since that's part of the Spring Grove addition in that area,
Yes.
do they have any responsibility for putting in money on this bridge?
I don't think so, because Wayne County takes care of all the bridges, whether they're inside the county or inside the city limits, unless they're on a state road. So as far as, Spring Grove or Richmond, they do not have any obligations to that.
So when will that be bid?
I think this one, early 2026 is when we're going to bid that one. Also on this project, the deck is in pretty bad shape. There's a ton of potholes, and you can see the rebar matting in the deck. So again, another warranted of a full replacement on this project. Next project is 720 on Bridge Avenue. This project, again, is only 51% funded by NDOT, 49% of LPA match. Again, we're about 900,000 short on this project. Again, hopefully that number will come down when it goes to letting. So some of the major repairs, we've warranted a full replacement. We're adding a sidewalk on the west side, because there's a sidewalk on the north that comes down to the bridge, and there's also a Richmond Park there kind of on the southwest side. So just putting a sidewalk on the west side to connect with their sidewalk, we thought it would help the pedestrians get to the park safely. So you've got deterioration, you've got leaching underneath. That's like the little string things that are holding down. That's where the water is completely going through the deck and leaching out the bottom. So again, a full replacement was warranted on this one, and we are projecting an October letting on this one. Next project we have is Bridge 149 on Fountain City Pike. This is on the east side of town. It's a steel beam bridge, and the steel is like 40% deteriorated, section loss. So again, this was another one that was by our construction inspection group deemed to be a full replacement. Again, NDOT is matching at a 50% at this time. We've got a $1 million shortage on this project. Part of this project, the roadway leading into the bridge on the east side is inadequate for a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. So part of this project was to kind of realign the road into the bridge to meet today's standards. Also improving the guardrail and widening the bridge a little bit. And this is projected for an early 26 letting. Our last federal project is Bridge 511 on Mulberry Street. It's a shorter bridge, but it's right next to US 40, and it also has, in the next slide you'll see it, it's got a manhole right in the middle of the deck. So a part of this project, we got NDOT to agree to help us move the sanitary outside of the deck, because as you can see, the water is getting around the manhole lid and deteriorating our deck. This is a slab bridge, so we will warrant it a full replacement as it is 80 years old. So, and NDOT has funded this at 80/20. This was kind of at the tail end of the inflation, so no additional obligations are needed on this one at this time, and with a July 26 letting. Any questions on our federal projects that you guys have?
And just because I'm still learning so much, but how many bridges do you oversee?
We oversee 230 bridges within the county, and a bridge is defined as having a span of 20 feet or more. So we do have several concrete structures that are less than 20 feet spanned that we maintain as well. Those are considered small structures, but as a bridge, we've got 230 bridges.
It's statewide. How does that rank in the number of bridges?
I think we are 6th in the state for the most number of bridges. So we're up there. Top 10 for sure. Okay, moving on to our local projects. This is Bridge 160. We did this one last year. The deck was similar to our Waterfall Road project, where it had a lot of potholes, patching work that's been done. After having our design engineers out there, they deemed that it was probably a 60–70% of full depth patching was needing, taking out the entire 8-inch deck. So therefore we said, well, maybe we need to switch gears. Instead of doing a maintenance project or preventative maintenance project, to a rehab and just pulling off the entire deck and replacing the deck. So that's what we did here. Here's some pictures. You can see that over 60% of the deck had been patched before. Underneath, you can see the white lines. That's the water leaching through the deck. So this project was, excuse me, this project was constructed in '24. We tore the deck off and put a new deck on it. We went through community crossings on this one, so community crossings gives you a 50% match on construction only. So this project cost $277,000, which NDOT did pay half of it. So just to kind of give you a ballpark idea of a deck replacement cost through community crossings. This was another one. This was a small structure replacement we did on Carlos Road and Smoky Road back in the fall of '23. Carlos Road comes down, there was a guardrail, and the structure kind of sits right at the intersection. As you can see in the lower right corner, trucks that were going west really like to hug that guardrail. So we thought it would be best to realign the road, widen the intersection from Carlos coming south, and kind of improve that for the traveling public. So we put in a box structure and repaved the area, and now we have a better intersection. They can see left and right, and no worries about getting into the guardrail or running off the side of the road. Again, we went through community crossings on this one. They did match 50%. Since we did it with our own forces, they only match the material cost. They do not match the labor. So we did get 50% paid for of the materials, and there was the reason why it's $48.52. There's a little bit of an ineligible cost in there that we paid for. So, but in a sense, they paid for 50% of the construction materials on this project. So those two projects I just showed you kind of give you a general view of what we can do with our community crossings money. We can do full replacements, we can do rehab, we can do preventative maintenance, we can do small structures. So now I'm going to kind of talk with you about the upcoming projects that need to be done that we'd like to go through community crossings on. This bridge is Bridge 307 on Gravel Pit Road. Kind of hugs I-70 there on the north side of Richmond, up around State Road 121. The superstructure on this one, which includes the bridge beams and the bridge deck, is poor rated at this time. There's section loss in the steel. So we have this one fully designed. It's shovel ready. It's just looking for that matching dollars so we can submit to community crossing. So with all the shortages on the federal projects, and since they were already in the process, we kind of have a couple shovel ready projects that we're kind of holding on until we get that extra match money for it. Here's some more pictures of the deteriorating steel and the leaching through the deck. Based on a 23 estimate, this project is going to cost $1.2 million, and if we go through community crossings, we can get $600,000 grant money for it. And our bridge inspection group kind of put some dates when these projects need to be replaced, and their recommendation was replacing this next year. So that would mean we would need to come up with the obligated match, or at least commit to a match by July when the next round of community crossings comes in, if we want to do this next year. So this would be in addition to the federal shortages that we have. The next project we have design plans complete on, being shovel ready, is Bridge 179, Clyde Oler Road. This project is a preventative maintenance project. We're doing a bridge hydro demolition of about 2 inches of the wearing surface on the deck, and putting in a rigid deck overlay and improving the approach slabs and some patchwork underneath. So you kind of see there's some patchwork in here. And the upper right picture, you can see the pavement cracking and settling, so it's kind of a rough transition from pavement to the bridge. And then underneath, there's an example of the deterioration of the bridge beams, which will therefore need to be patched. A 2023 estimate on this one was $246,000. Again, if we go through community crossings, we can get 50% of it paid for. And the maintenance year needed would be 26, 27, somewhere in that time frame. So looking at this one, if you go a little bit north, there's Bridge 182 on Robinson Road. It has similar needs to this one, although the deck is a little bit more, it's in worse shape, but the same repair options. There's rebar, and a lot of those patches have popped out, so every year we go through, and that's kind of one of our bridges that we frequently visit. So to prevent this from turning into what I showed you earlier on a Bridge 160 being a full deck replacement, these rehabilitations or preventative maintenance that we do on our bridges, that we don't do a worst fix first. We try to use all the tools in our toolbox to either go replacement, maintenance, and that's kind of how we come up with our game plan or our 5-10 year plan. So since this one is close to the Clyde Oler Road project, it has not been designed yet, but we feel that being similar construction types, that we could possibly lump this together, having the same contractor, therefore getting a more favorable bid and bid these two projects together. And a rough estimate, $350,000. This one being a little bit more than Clyde Oler, only because the bridge railing is pretty short on that bridge. So in addition to what was proposed on the Clyde Oler, we would be replacing the guardrail on this bridge. Next one is Bridge 301, Mineral Springs Road. It's just north of the bigger bridge we replaced a couple years ago. It has a poor wearing surface, a poor bridge deck, and the superstructure is rated at a 5, which is in fair condition with the likelihood of dropping to a poor rating. We do not have a design contract for this one yet. Only being, I think, 21 or 22 foot span, there's a possibility based on the hydraulics of this bridge that we could shrink this down to a small structure and replace it with a 4-sided box structure, kind of like what we did at Smoky Row and Carlos. So I'd like to do an engineering assessment on this and kind of come up with a good game plan for this one. You can see some of the deterioration of the slab. There's leaching through the abutments. And just another rough estimate, $400,000. If we go a box structure, it would be substantially less. If we put back a bridge, that would probably be a conservative number to use there. And a recommended replacement year about 2028. Last one is Bridge 150 on Watt Road. It's not a very high traveled road, but this structure was put in the 1920s, so it's pushing 100 years, if not over. Our bridge inspection team recommended a full replacement, widening the roads, and right now this one is not under contract. We have looked at this, me and Mike Sharp, about possibly doing a box structure here. Again, this is a 21 foot span bridge. Depending on if the hydraulics would allow, we could do this in-house a whole lot cheaper than putting a bridge back. I know the farmers in the area have a hard time getting their big combines and stuff across this bridge, and we get calls yearly on when are we going to fix this bridge. So as you can see, the pictures show the foundation, the abutments cracking, the bridge rail is deteriorating, and plus it's only, I would have to guess, 15, 16 feet wide. So it's kind of more or less a one-lane road per se too as well. Again, rough estimate, 200,000. Again, if we go the box structure route, we could probably get that down a little bit more. Rehabilitation year 2030. However, depending on if the funding is available, then we could always bump that up. So that's the end of my presentation here. Just to kind of give you an idea on the local side too, on what type of projects we've done, what type of projects that we need to accomplish, and about the construction costs associated with them. On your packet I passed out, the first page here kind of shows the remaining 5 federal projects that are not in the construction phase yet. And you can see the letting date, the original construction costs that was done at the time of application, which on these projects they span 4 to 6 years. So the original costs could be back in 2019, 2020. I've got an updated construction cost based on the inflation, the original NDOT funding, and then also on the right column, there's a funding shortage amount, and then there's a grand total at the bottom, which shows you that to complete these projects, if we do not get any extra NDOT funding, that we would need $2.7 million of additional funding from the local side to complete these projects. The second page kind of gives you a quick snapshot of our 5-year plan. The first row is if we do not get any other funding from NDOT, if council, if there's no extra money coming in from the local side, that's going to show you what the funding balances are or would be in those respective years if we don't get any extra funding. The second row, I've projected in 2025 and 2026 additional funding request, and then to also show you the bridge balances if we can get that extra funding, that the $2.7 million. I did estimate a little high on that. As a teenager, when you need 10, you ask for 20. But all seriously, I put a conservative number to that because we just don't know. Construction costs are going to go up, go down. I mean, we've seen a trend that they're stabilizing and coming down. Hopefully that's still the projection, but again, that was just a conservative approach to this. And this is just for our federal projects. So mind you, if we try to do some more local funding or go after community crossings, there will be an additional need in the next 5 years to do those projects. And then the last page kind of gives you a more detailed view of the projects we have, and then the years and the amounts that we plan to pay off all those from the local side. It's time. If you guys have any questions for me on this?
I do have a quick question. So when you use the box things, in relation to doing it a different way, are those better? Do we do that because that's going to last longer, or because that's less money to do?
Twofold. It is less money. The box structures are, Mike has trained up a highly experienced crew out there. They can set the box structures. The only thing we do is we rent the crane and our crews do the rest. We're one of the few counties in the area that do install our own small structures. So there's a cost benefit, as well as these box structures are slated to last 75 years. So about the same time frame as a regular bridge construction. So with a bridge, you're driving piles or putting a spread foundation. There's more labor, there's more formwork, more construction costs. So yes, going the box structure route, they are cheaper and they're easier to install, and we can do those ourselves.
So when you were talking about the farmers taking their big equipment across, I've seen some of those big pieces of equipment, and this would be just as safe for that. Max driving his whatever across wouldn't have an issue.
Correct, yes. Yeah, they are load rated to just like a bridge would be.
Okay.
So they're just as strong.
What about the required maintenance on a box culvert versus a bridge?
What I've seen so far on the box structures, Mike's been doing them for several years now. There's very little maintenance other than just riprap around the edge of the pavements and down each side of the boxes as they kind of flare out down to the flow lines and stuff. Very little maintenance that we're seeing right now with those. So,
Other questions?
Just like to thank you. It's a major undertaking. You guys are doing a great job.
Yes.
With the number of bridges we've got, we've had a very good bridge program for decades, and we appreciate you continuing that forward for us, Brandon, so.
right, yes, with 230 bridges, if you don't replace 2 a year, that lasts about 100 years, 75 to 100 years, you will get behind. So, you know, if we don't replace 2 or 3 a year and stay on schedule, stay in front of it, we're going to fall behind very quickly. So, so that kind of gives you kind of an idea of what we're seeing on our end, the costs that we're seeing, and the needs that we have. But going after the federal funding is a big help. On our bigger projects, now a small road like Mulberry Street, we went the federal route, but typically you can get through community crossings a lot quicker. Design times are about a year, and then you can go after the community crossings money for the match. So we have different federal or different funding options out there. It's just having the match to do it is the concern. So
It always boils down to money, doesn't it?
that's right.
Brandon, I'm gonna have a lot more time on my hands after this Friday. Would you mind if I stop by one day and you educate me a little bit further on some of these bridges? And
Yes, anytime. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate your work.
Mr. President, so do we know, and again, still in orientation here. Yeah, the 2.7 million that's short, was that built, did we already have money built into the budget, or is this something we're gonna have to discuss at a later time?
Hopefully, additional funds will come from NDOT to help offset that. We're in a unique situation the last few years with the price that the NDOT pledges for the 80% is based upon the original estimated cost. And oftentimes that's 4 to 6 years back. And with the inflation that we've had, that goes up. The state has no more additional funds in reality, but they have been able to give us additional funds the last 2 or 3 bridges because of this shortage. A lot of other counties do not have the funds to make that up, so they've delayed or dropped projects, and the state has given us that money. We can hope that continues.
Okay.
We don't have any assurance. If we're not able to get additional funds, we may have to pull back on some of these projects, but we'll take it one at a time as it comes forward.
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct, Brandon?
That's correct, yes.
Good question, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on bridges? Okay, let's move to the sheriff's request for expenditure from the commissary fund. Harry, you want to take care of that?
Yeah, as you, if you watch the news or you watch the joint address to Congress by the president last night, I didn't see our sheriff on TV, but he was there. Sheriff Redder attended as a personal guest of Congressman Shreve and had an opportunity to go to DC and discuss some of the federal initiatives for law enforcement with the congressman and then attend that joint session. The sheriff contacted me as his liaison and requested permission to use commissary funds to pay for travel, lodging, and meals. And State Board of Accounts was contacted and indicated that they would approve those expenditures out of commissary. The reason he came to us, it's an exception to the approved list that the county holds with the sheriff. So with that being said, I would like to make a motion that we approve the sheriff's request to pay his travel expenses out of the commissary.
second.
Second. Other questions, discussion? It's a great opportunity that the sheriff had to represent Wayne County in that environment.
There's also representing Indiana Sheriff's Association included in that, and I guess probably could have took that travel out of his county budget, but they'll take out commissary, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Also, I'd like to point out that by state statute, the statute does state that anything is agreed upon by the council can be taken out of that commissary account besides those things listed under the statute and the commissary resolution that the county has with the sheriff.
We appreciate him willing to take that out of commissary instead of using general fund dollars. All those in favor of the motion, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Plaster, you are now on the agenda to talk about a litigation line item.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We have a special litigation line item in the commissioner's budget that has $5,000 in it. It's been, I think, $5,000 for a number of years. With changes to our insurance program in particular, increases in deductibles, that $5,000 is proving to not be adequate. We have money available this year for the first time in many years in the Commissioner's Contingency Fund that we can talk about using for this year. It's going to have to be something that we address. It may be something that we need to address yet this year, but I think for the time being, I wanted you to be aware of that as an issue, and we'll look at an increase in our budget for 2026. We'll do what we can to take care of the issue this year with our current budget, but again, I wanted you to be aware that that's going to be an issue in the future that we need to address.
Thanks for the heads up. Make sure that we do address that in our budget
We'll
discussion.
keep you posted. Thank you.
Any questions of Jeff on that? Okay. Is Steve gonna come first with the commissioner's comments on our project?
Good morning.
Morning.
You have your bi-weekly sheet in front of you as always. And just going down the list there, the annex generator, they were here last week to start preparation for the annex startup process so that can be then connected. Don't have a definitive date yet. That still is in coordination with having an on-site generator available so that we have that as a backup power. Under ongoing projects, you'll see a new one there, Fairgrounds Parking. That's one that we're putting on the table for starting discussion on that. As you know, we've had, when Haley gave her presentation to council a couple weeks ago, you saw that we are starting to have much larger events in the expo hall, and we're also having a lot more events going simultaneously between Coleman and Expo. So our Fairgrounds Committee made a recommendation to commissioners, and they concurred that this probably is a project that rises to the top that needs some looking at for parking purposes. For example, over the weekend, we had two large events. We had the Midwestern Dog Show there, as well as the Rockin' Gym, and a lot of vehicles out there that needed parking spaces. Both the Chamber and the Symphony events draw over 500 people to the expo hall. So we're going to start the process here as we go along, and one of the first things we need to address is the drainage. If we start putting additional hard surfaces there, you'll have more runoff. We need to determine whether or not that detention area in the southwest corner of the fairgrounds needs to be enlarged, because when the pipe was sized underneath Salisbury, when the city paved Salisbury, they limited the amount of water that could go through there at any given time to keep the runoff going into the touch wall addition. So we may need to increase our retention to hold back a little more water before it goes into that drainage pipe. But the surveyor's office will be doing most of this in-house. The highway department will be calculating what the cost of material will be, and so as that progresses and we have more facts, we'll bring that to you.
Would that potentially be an expense out of the funds that?
Yeah, I think the commissioners at this point have talked about it. I think they mentioned to you that the initial expenses would come out of the naming rights fund, which is in the lower right-hand corner of your sheet. The courthouse front entrance, again, we did meet with our engineer. They're going to be, we should be receiving a change order for the entrance location change that was from the original plan. And then we'll be putting together a small committee for the landscaping plan, because remember there's a portion of that portion of the bid included landscaping in that area. So we'll be putting together a group to look at that. The approximate start date for this project is mid-April. The IT cabling project continues pretty well on schedule. They're still in the jail. I just got an email this morning. They look to wrap up the jail portion of this next week, and then they'll finish going back and finishing up the project. So this is pretty well on schedule and should be finished by the end of this month. The ProxGuard lock system, the company that we hired to do this was on site last week, and they have a start date of this month, and they anticipate that will go through and be finished up sometime in June. And then the courthouse elevator, we've asked LWC to amend the contract from our original discussion that we've had with them so that we can look at the cost individually of removing that flue that we've talked about in there, so that we can look at that separately from the actual elevator installation. And then, as always, there in the lower right-hand corner are your two balances, the one-time council balance and the fairgrounds naming rights balance. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Just a couple of additional things, if I could take a minute or two. Number one, you heard Brandon allude to several times community crossings. And community crossings for the last several years has been a program of the state has conducted that has added $4 to $5 million to our ability to maintain roads and bridges in Wayne County. There are changes contemplated in the legislature to that program, so it's something we need to keep an eye on. Again, you heard Brandon allude to that program for the foreseeable future in bridge projects in particular. So we need to keep an eye on that. We're working with the Commissioners Association's Legislative Committee and the same for the Association of Indiana Counties, and we're keeping track and sharing our concerns with how that legislation might go forward. We are very busy, as you could tell from Mr. Higginbotham's report, but along with a lot of those projects come changes to policy. So we're also working on those policy changes. For example, with the ProxGuard locking system, we're looking at a policy on people using those cards as IDs so that we can more readily identify who is a county employee and who is not. So we're looking at the policy there. We're also in connection with our auto insurance. We're looking at a new fleet safety policy, which will involve reviews of all county employees who are driving either county-owned or personally owned vehicles on county business, looking at their driving records and doing that on an annual basis. So we're looking at the policies to put that program into place. So I think we're making good progress. There's a lot of work yet to be done. I think I'll stop there and ask if you have any questions. I would, one thing to add, you were kind enough and able to put a new position in the Commissioner's budget for this year. We are working on a series of job description changes that will allow us to move forward with that. We would anticipate sometime this month having that all put together and ready to come back to you for permission to hire that new position. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other business to come forward? Any reports from the groups that we are liaisons to?
I just have one for what was known as Wayne Union Recycling. The dissolution of that organization continues, working with legal counsel here in Wayne County and Union County. That's spearheaded by Jeff, and they have scheduled a joint meeting with the Union County Commissioners for Friday, the 21st, which is a requirement by statute as the next step for the dissolution of WR. We continue working with City of Richmond and Richmond Sanitary District in basic planning and water and soil for what recycling will look like in Wayne County in the future. So those are parallel things that are going, and we'll keep you up to date on how that transitions.
I think it's good for everybody to remember that basically in this transition year of 2025, the programs are continuing as has pretty much always happened and been planned. So I know this is a long, drawn-out process, but
Well, I thought it was going to be easy. So it's going to be easy.
well, every
That's why
time
he volunteered to be the president. He thought it was going to be easy.
numerous times we've thought that the dissolution or whatever, how you call it, was over with, and then I keep hearing of more meetings and so forth. So thanks for keeping on that. Any other reports?
Max, I have
Yes.
one. On the liaison of the courts, we still been working with Judge Warren and Lonnie McIntosh and that group. I did have the meeting, as I told you before. We've had several phone conversations over the 4D court line items. I've also talked with John Mueller, and everyone seems to be in agreement about, for the budget year of 2026, putting it all in writing on how this is going to be handled. John would also like to see a copy of that. They have a few counties in the state of Indiana that are doing something similar, but John would like to see what we might come up with in our draft of our document, so they might be able to use it statewide. I think it's a good idea. That way everyone is on the same page and everybody knows how it's going to be handled from that point forward.
Appreciate your follow-up on all this, Jeff, and for keeping me informed of where we're at. And it's going to be a long, drawn-out process, but we got to really dig into it deep in the budget process and get this resolved going forward. So we will be discussing a transfer in our finance committee meetings to follow. Any other reports?
Max, I should probably report on the health department because I'm liaison with them. And Dan Burke had a meeting this past week. He has a new committee to look at what are the priorities going into 2026. We don't know what the legislature will do when it's all said and done, but it looks like they've cut $50 million from that Health First Indiana program. So Dan's getting ahead of the game and has several different individuals from different organizations looking at what's our priority. And he also had a list that was quite eye-opening of where Wayne County ranks as opposed to other counties. And our worst one was the opioid overdose number. We were number 91 out of 92 to the not good. So that's really shocking. Now, these figures were as of the end of 2023. So we have a lot of work to do. A few other things as well, but that was the big one for them.
Kathy, question. Is that 50 million cut from what was originally committed, or is that new additional dollars?
From the originally committed number, but it's not,
Really?
it's not went through the whole budget session yet, so
Okay.
that's the projected number, but not the final.
So all the work that was done a couple of years ago, thinking these dollars were coming, could all be gone.
250 to 200.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
They did tell us at the time we weren't guaranteed we'd always get it, but it's kind of disappointing to hear that.
hoping that at least it would stay level.
Yeah.
But you don't know what's gonna happen out there till the last gavel goes down. So,
And I will say Dan and the people at the health department do a great job, in my opinion, of working with other partners in the county and the communities to do those jobs for us, to work on those things and not putting more employees on the county rolls, but they do a good job.
thank you, Kathy. Anything else? Our next meeting is scheduled for April the 2nd, 8 o'clock here in these chambers, and our work session will be March the 19th at 6 p.m. Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carried.